Dead! He's dead! Shrieks the scavver from beside the bunks. The others arm themselves, drawing knives and hefting clubs. The choking guard stumbles back into the room and collapses onto the floor. His face is blue, his eyes are bulging from his face, and his hands are wrapped around his throat. The Exclusion Zone, a NorCom Union story by Nicholas K. Chapter 1, Part 1. A foul wind howls out of the heart of the exclusion zone, roaring by me and clawing at my coat and armor as it passes. There are voices on the wind, old voices full of longing, restless, jealous. They call to me, inviting me to stop and have a break from my wearying work, to listen for a time and share in the secrets told to it on its journey from parts unknown to places far away and unimaginable. Not now. Not yet. I drop one of the fluted egg-shaped lead slugs into the shot cup of my wrist rocket and pull it tight. 3 more are tucked in the palm of my left hand. The custom-built wrist rocket attached to the back of my left glove clicks and pops as I slowly draw it tighter and tighter, waiting for my moment. With the wasteland winds howling outside the open skylights just above my head, it's not loud enough to draw any attention in the large, high-ceilinged room. The stink of death and decay hangs heavy in the room. It's sickening, even through my respirator. I can't even imagine how these disgusting animals can tolerate it, let alone live in it. The scavvers, the filth, laugh and chat loudly beneath the single light of this room. Not sure what it is. Seems to be a barracks or dorm of some kind. Steel-framed bunk beds line the walls, each with a trunk and a set of lockers or cabinets to either side. Doesn't matter what this place is, these fucks won't be sleeping here tonight. I've been perched up on this catwalk for half an hour, hugging the shadows and waiting, watching, learning as much as I can about this operation before I make my move. There were 10 of them. I look down and sneer at the blank, empty face by my feet. Now there are only 9 of the bastards. 5 are crowded around a table playing some kind of card game. 2 are sleeping in their little beds. Another 2 are milling about patrolling the sanitation facility corridors. I press myself against the catwalk railing and aim down. The small aiming reticle attached to my wrist rocket is centered on the sleeping scavver's head about 3 meters below. He rolls every now and then. Right side, back, left side, back again. Just a matter of waiting for a clear shot. And there it is. The shadows slide off me as I lean about half a meter over the railing with the reticle centered on the soft spot just behind his left eye. I pull the ultra-high weight elastics to a full pull. They creak, then whisper out a nearly silent snap as I let go. No need to stay and watch. No need to confirm the hit. The sound is all the confirmation I need. A dull, wet crack and no clatter of lead on concrete. A solid hit straight into his brain. I melt back into the shadows, drop to toes and fingertips, and creep away to take up my next pre-scouted position. From my new vantage, I can see the sleeping scavver will never wake up again. Clean, quiet, no fluids, no mess. Next is the other sleeper. Another slug flies, and another scavver dies. I look down on them, not quite angry, but resentful. All things considered, these sick fucks got off easy. I glance toward the closed set of double doors at the far end of the room, and my face contorts into a mask of pure hatred. Haven't seen it myself yet, but what the scavver I caught up on the roof told me before I crawled down through the skylight turned my stomach. They'd regret the day their mamas shat them out into this fucked-up, ruined world before their sparks were finally snuffed out. "Oh, the things PubSec would do to you," I whisper to the 2 dreamers. Again, I drop to toes and fingertips and slink away to my third and final position. Hell is about to break loose, and the scavvers, the creatures down below, have no idea. From my vantage point, I have a clear shot down one of the 2 corridors connecting to this room. The 2 patrolling scavvers meet up here in the hub, exchange info, bullshit with the other scavvers, then separate and go back on their patrols. About 10 minutes later, they come back and do it again. Not a bad plan, but they should be taking a battle buddy when they leave the group. Going out in singles just means no one's there to save their stupid asses when they hit the floor. They should be radioing and status updates when they reach the end of their routes, too. Oh well, makes my life easier. I give my head a little shake, and the clock appears in the upper right corner of my respirator visor. Been just about 10 minutes since I saw either of them. About a minute passes, and almost right on cue, one emerges from the corridor I'm watching, and then the other appears from the other corridor beneath my position. They exchange a few muted words and are on their ways again. They don't seem quite so nonchalant as they did the last time they popped up. No banter with the other scabbers, just a terse report on things being quiet, and they're gone again. The other scabbers seem not to notice the change in the patrollers' demeanors. Kinda curious if they're wondering why the roof has gone quiet. I wonder if they've even noticed yet. It's times like this that I'm glad I spent the credit to have my wrist rocket made. Silent, powerful, infinite ammunition. Not a firearm, so not regulated by the civil administration. Would rather have a high enough SOCRED score to be issued a gun, but fat chance the admins would trust some lowly fucking InfraSec swine with a piece. Can't complain too much. This thing is a fine alternative. Well worth the effort it took to get it. My target begins his walk into the corridor. Before he disappears from view, I risk a moment of exposure and squeeze the second and third fingers of my left hand together. The switch hidden in the knuckle of my gloves clicks, and the pinpoint green laser rolls up onto the back of his head. Full draw. The elastic snap, the springs click, and the slug streaks across the room too fast for any human eye to see. If any of the stupid fucks down below were paying enough attention to listen, they'd take the whistling for the wind sighing in the skylights. The patrolling scavver had no chance. The slug collapses the back of his head, and his lifeless body crumples up into a heap just out of sight of his crew. Not a single man so much as turns his head. 4 down, 5 more to go. I can't help but grin behind my respirator. All the suffering these monsters have brought to the people of NorCap. All the ruined families, broken hearts, and shattered dreams. Months of investigating and a week crawling the exclusion zone looking for them. And now it all comes down to this. I count down the seconds with the clock on my visor, and right on time, the second patroller emerges from the hallway beneath my feet. He stops and waits for his friend to come. He shifts on his feet after a few minutes pass without result. The grin widens when he approaches the others. I can hear them, but just barely. The wastelandish is so thick it's all but impossible to understand. But I know what they're saying. "Oh, you seen Ren Shilai?" asks the patrolling scavver. "He ain't bark form his rounds." "Nah, he still ain't corn bark yet," says one of the scavvers seated at the table. "Where'd the cunt go?" asks the newcomer. "I ain't gun back art dar till he comes and reports," he says. "How the furk do I know? Your da one's supposed to be watching. That furkin' InfraSec cunt might still shore up," says the seated one. "Gore and foind him." The more they talk, the more I adjust to their thick wasteland accents. "Why the furk are we still here? We ought to be back at the test site helping the rest of the crew park up the Artifa Link." One of the scavvers at the table complains loudly and throws his cards down. "Or to just dome the rest of the candidates and get new ones from NorCap." "We were told to wait for that InfraSec swine and take him out if we can," says the seated one. He seems to be this group's boss. "Destiny would have your hide if she heard you. She might be listening right now." "Destiny," I whisper to myself. "The fuck is that? And candidates? Candidates for what?" "And if we can't?" asks the guard. My eyes narrow and I strain to listen, but it seems Boss Man decided that whatever they were starting to get into could wait. "Girt these lazy furks up. They can help you find Ren Shilai," says Boss Man, throwing down his cards and pushing back his chair. "Well, fuck me," I say under my breath. "Wasn't supposed to fucking go this way," I murmur to myself, pulling out another fistful of slugs from the pouch slung under my left forearm and drawing the shot cup out to a full pull. I watch the guard approach the dead patroller's corridor and the scavver from the table approaching the bunks to wake up their sleeping companions. I bite my lip in frustration. "Who's first?" I ask softly. The scavver from the table reaches the bunks and starts shaking the one I'd killed first. "Wake Orp," he shouts. "Wake Orp, you lazy furk. Gorta foin Ren Shilai." A voice echoes into the room from the dead guard's corridor. "Oi, I farned him. Furkin' head is..." is all he gets out before I let go as he turns around to come back. The slug takes him in the throat. The clatter of the slug hitting the wall and falling to the ground draws the group's attention. The wet, choking, and sucking noises coming from the hallway bring them all to their feet. The scavver from the table gives his friend a shove. He rolls from the bed and drops to the floor, unmoving. "Dead! He's dead!" shrieks the scavver from beside the bunks. The others arm themselves, drawing knives and hefting clubs. The choking guard stumbles back into the room and collapses onto the floor. His face is blue, his eyes are bulging from his face, and his hands are wrapped around his throat. The scavver checking the bunk shouts again. Lin Yuxi is dead too. The scavver leaves his dead mates at the bunks and bolts back to the table to get his weapon. A slug flies out and cracks his skull. His legs go slack, and he crashes headlong into the table, knocking it over and tangling his legs up in a chair as he bucks and thrashes on the floor before becoming still in a growing pool of his own blood. "It's him!" shouts Boss Man. "He's here! Run! Regroup at the testing suite. Zhang Jun and his crew can deal with this." "What about—" Another one of the scavvers begins to protest. Boss Man grabs him by the collar and shoves him as hard as he can toward the corridor where I'd killed the first guard. I seat another slug, pull to my cheek and let fly. The slug streaks by the one Boss Man had just shoved, just missing his forehead and grazing his ear. He cries out in pain as the slug slams into the wall, flattening into a lead disc and showering the scavver with shards of shattered tiling before it clatters to the floor somewhere in the shadows. Stumbling backward into an awkward half-stumble, half-sprint, he points to me and cries, "There he is!" Boss Man pulls out his phone and turns to dive behind the overturned table for cover. I draw on him and let fly. The slug smashes into his hand and he screams, flinging the phone and landing hard on his back behind the table. "Run!" he shrieks. "Go! Warn the others!" The scavvers flee. As they do, Boss Man jumps up and rushes after them. I draw on him and let fly. A thick crack reverberates in the room and he twists and falls to the ground. "Go!" cries Boss Man as he tries to push himself up with one arm. The other hangs limp by his side. They don't look back. Their shouts and footfalls fade, and the crash of a heavy metal door slamming shut echoes through the facility. He darts toward a ladder bolted to the wall that leads up to the catwalks, and I take another shot at him. Not a killing blow, just hard enough to piss him off. It strikes him in the thigh, and he stumbles. I step out of the shadows. "Come and get me, you wretched prick!" I shout, pointing at his dead friends and laughing raucously. I step back into the shadow and walk loudly away, down a corridor and up onto the roof. The rattling of a ladder leading up to the catwalk follows me out. Time for a chat.